I'm a high school dropout. I'm fluent in Chinese. I went to university, got my bachelor's degree. I got a full scholarship for my MBA. I got a scholarship to study Chinese. You want to know why I wanted to drop out? Because I wanted to be a chef. I just wanted to go and work and just try to learn a skill and a trade. And everybody told me I will never be amount to anything because I didn't graduate. I didn't go to school. I'm not going to college. And what a crappy thing to do to somebody. To say that if you're not going to amount to anything, if you just work. Bullshit. Go out and do it. Go out and be an electrician, a carpenter, be a small business entrepreneur, be a hairdresser. I don't care what you do. Open a gym. Show them dignity and respect because they're part of your community. They're working hard as well, and they have a skill that they could teach you. I want to make sure I'm going to Congress to make sure that, we respect the trades, respect the dignity of work and hard work and entrepreneurship here in the U.S. and put the trades back into high school. Financial education. Make sure that people can understand how to manage their money, so they don't either not go into debt or leverage their capital and so on and so forth, so they can help build wealth, throughout time.
Today I'm sitting with Matthew Diemer, who is running for Congress in Ohio and is a Bitcoin. Matthew was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio by his mother and adopted father. He was raised in a blue-collar environment with a lot of adversity. During his childhood, Matt's father struggled while working blue-collar jobs and also working towards earning his degree from Cleveland State University so he could provide more for his family. Matthew worked as a dishwasher and worked his way all the way up to running restaurant kitchens before going back to college himself. Matthew is also the host of Decrypt, where he interviews popular people involved in the crypto space. Matthew is a breath of fresh air to see a young person running for Congress that understands and appreciates technology, small business, entrepreneurship, and the struggle of the everyday blue-collar American. I really enjoyed this episode, and I think you will too. Matthew is a proponent for Bitcoin and the blockchain, and we need more people like this in Congress that understand technology, small business, and Bitcoin. So with that said, let's dive in with Matthew Diemer. Matthew, welcome to the show.
My man, how you doing, man? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. You know what? I love having you on. I love younger people that are trying to run for Congress. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But before we get into that, I got to know who are in your top 5. If you remember, T-Mobile used to have the 5 people that you'd have, your 5. In your world, other than your family, tell me the 5 people that you're surrounding yourself with the most today, because as they say, you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself the most with.
Wow, man, that's a question that I was not expecting. Obviously, my girlfriend, who's not my family, but my girlfriend, Dr. Sarah Sweeney. I surround her with her and her family. Her family's just amazing. She has 3 sisters. Her father is a retired doctor. Her mother is works in a school, and I surround myself with their family. And those sisters married great husbands. And to be honest with you, they're great support. They're socially active. They're politically active. They are all working in either the medical field or in politics. They are willing to jump in and help anybody out at any time. Like, for example, they had inherited a house from their grandfather when he passed a couple of years ago. And so far, the mother has already had 2 families that had, their house burned down, lived there, and it's like, hey, offer my house to have, offer it up to people that need it. And they're willing to donate. They're willing to, put the work in. And so when it comes to people I surround myself with, it's people who aren't afraid to do the work, aren't afraid to step up, aren't afraid to help out, and aren't afraid to, do work for things that they believe in.
So Matthew, you're about my age, right? You grew up in the 90s and the late 80s. I got to also ask you, who are your top 3 favorite rappers of all time?
Oh, Biggie, Jay-Z, and number 3 rapper. Oh, man, maybe Method Man.
I like that. Biggie's the number 1, bro. I love that you have Biggie number 1.
Biggie number 1, Jay-Z number 2, and then it just goes on.
Yeah.
Man, then it starts to get fuzzy. It's like who's the next one? But I there's a lot of, you said growing up, but Joyner Lucas, man, he puts it down, man. Like that's a new rapper that is just like, he just has some lyrics. He has bars for days.
I like that. Let's dive into fatherhood. We talked about this before we started the call here. I'd like to discuss your relationship with your stepfather. I've read your bio, a little bit about you. I also grew up with a stepfather who raised me. How has that impacted you both professionally and personally growing up?
Well, first, I don't want to call him a stepfather. He is my adopted father. I've known him since he's adopted me when I was 1 year old. I got to go back to a little bit of the story. My father, my biological father, came from Nigeria to study in Kent State University. So I am half Nigerian. And after his studying, he had to go back because that was what his visa was for. You study in the U.S., and then you go back to Nigeria. He offered my mother to go back, but my father was Muslim. My mother could have been one of many wives. She wasn't feeling that, so she decided to stay. And during this process, she got to know my dad, my adopted dad. And there was a beautiful picture that I have that is of both of them, my biological father and my adopted father, in the
Oh, that's great.
airport with me in the middle, kind of like doing a handoff, but like, I respect you. Here's this boy, and you raise him. And my father is my father. I don't know anybody else but my father. He has, been through the shit of raising some kids, especially a boy
Yeah.
in the house, especially a boy that is, biracial when he is a white man. I have a white brother and sister, had a sister and a white brother, white mother, white family, white uncle, white aunts in white neighborhoods. And not to say that that's a thing, but it is something to there is a difference enough to say, hey, I am different. But this guy signed up to deal with it. So he
Yeah.
dealt with a teenager that was probably a pretty much of an asshole. We had our fights, growing up. We had, he was my dad, and he never once said, not once do I remember in my whole life him saying, "You're not my son. You're adopted. You owe me anything." Never once. He was always my dad, no matter what kind of crap I put him through, and he was always there. So I would
Yep.
not call him my stepdad. I would call him my father. He is my father. And my mother they did divorce, and my mother did remarry. And so there was never a case where he was like, "Oh, we got divorced. You're now not my kid. You're my mom. You're your mother's kid." Never. I still 42 years later, he's my dad. I have a stepdad. My mother remarried, and he's a good guy too. He's helped me out as well. And I just been surrounded by good guys in my life.
I have a biological dad and I have a stepdad. The only reason I call him to his face, he's my dad. To people around us in our circle, he's my dad. But to not cause confusion, I say stepdad because my other dad's still in my life. So it just so people understand. But I will say the term stepdad is a compliment, in my opinion, because a stepdad steps up when your dad steps out. And that's how I always viewed it. But anyway,
No, man, I love
moving on.
that. I love that.
All right, Matthew, I want to talk about healthcare and your position on healthcare. Can you tell us about your son, by the way? Sorry to hear about that. Your son lost his life at 14 days old, and you were unable to afford an operation that you needed to correct a severe heart condition. So I'd like to learn a little bit more about that. And, and what is your position in general in healthcare? As I understand it, it didn't happen in the United States, but in general in the United States, I'm sure this has happened to a lot of people. And where do you stand on this?
So just a little backstory. What happened with my son is that he was born with tricuspid stenosis, meaning that his a valve in his heart was not large enough to get the blood to circulate through his whole body, and so it was just starving his brain of oxygen. And so in China, it's more of like a pay first situation where you need to come up with the money. And you know what? When it comes to little things from stitches to getting a blood test or blood work, things are cheap. $5 here, $10 here, and honestly, the system is pretty affordable. But for this surgery, it was around $40,000. And living in China, in southern China at the time, I didn't have $40,000. I was fresh out of college, or maybe I think I was still doing my degree, and I couldn't come up with 40 grand. And not only that is I was asking my family for the money, and they were going to send it to us. And in Beijing or in China, when you open your account as a foreigner, you only can use your branch for wire transfers. So you come in and I asked my mother for money. I think she sent up like $10,000, but it was stuck in limbo in my branch in Beijing, which is in northern China, while I was in southern China, and we didn't know that. So we were waiting at the bank, just like if you went to Chase and you went to your account, money's not showing up in your account, but we didn't know that you had to go to the bank where you opened your account to see if the money came. And so that was days and days, and we couldn't get the money, and it was a big a fiasco. Obviously, with the time mounting, and time is of the essence. We just couldn't get it done. And of course, they wouldn't do the surgery without the money. And that's actually, kind of a pivot of where I started learning about Bitcoin and understanding the benefits of Bitcoin, is because, look, I needed money, and I needed to go cross borders at the speed of life. There was things happening,
Mm-hmm.
and I needed those funds. And well, the ACH, the banking regulations, the communication between banks in America and banks in China, whatever you want, whatever the regulations or the rigmarole that was being put through, didn't operate in an efficient manner. And the question was why? Why, if I can call my mother or send a text to my mother or across seas, I can't just get money when I need it? And why do I have to go through all these checks and balances? And that's what made me look at Bitcoin. We'll probably talk about that in a little bit. But long story short is, after all of this, he was born about 14 days. He stayed a couple days, or I want to say maybe 3 or 4, in the ICU in Guangzhou in the hospital. And I had to make a choice. And the choice was to either A, continue to wait there and watch his health deteriorate, or take him home, which was I want to say, I can't remember, it's a long time ago, about a 4 hour ride by car back to where his mother was, and allow him to spend the last couple of hours with her. And that's what I did. Is I took him off life support, and I got a taxi, held him in my arms in the taxi, in the back seat of the taxi, for those hours, just hoping that he wouldn't pass before we got to his mother. And I walked to the door, gave him to his mother. She breastfed him one last time. We put him down to sleep, and he didn't wake up. So it was almost I hate to use the word perfect timing, but I'm really happy that she got to spend the last hours with him. How does it affect my idea on healthcare? Well, first of all, the healthcare system, as I said earlier, my girlfriend's a doctor, and I know how messed up the healthcare system is. I mean, when it comes to the fees and lack of transparency, the rigmarole, if you don't have really good health insurance, of what you have to do to get your prescriptions filled, the backdoor dealings of these insurance companies that are, changing rates and what they will cover and what they won't cover, overnight. There's sometimes that my girlfriend has a patient that's on insulin, but because she was prescribing either one brand or one this or that of some medication, or maybe if it's not insulin, but other medications, that the people will be cut off of their prescriptions, and nobody would tell them because the backdoor dealings of the insurance company made a different deal with a different company for the same drug, and nobody tells them until they go up to get a refill, and it's like, oh, your payment is now $500 for the medicine instead of your copay,
right?
And they need it now, and so they have to go back and get a re-prescription from her as a doctor, and she's just like, why is this even happening? So my stance on healthcare is, one, everybody needs to have a family doctor. Look, we were talking offline. You go to the gym, you know about your body, you know about your health, you take it very seriously. Everybody should know about what's going on with their body. They need to have, just blood checks. They need to know how they're progressing, what their BMI is. They need to know, they should have a family doctor from when they're born until they're older, so they can monitor their health. We should have things that are, hundreds of years old of technology when it comes to x-rays and stitches and setting a bone. Those things should not cost anything. They are ancient technologies. A plaster cast, look, your kid could go to school and make something with plaster. Why does it cost hundreds of dollars to get your bone fixed in the hospital? So I am a very big proponent of having free, basic healthcare for everybody, so they can understand what's going on in their body, understand how to deal with it.
Proactive healthcare is what you sound like you're saying.
Proactive healthcare, yes, so they can understand what they're eating, how they're eating. I am assuming that you use MyFitnessPal app, right, to track your macros.
Something like that, but yeah, that's right.
Look, brand aside, you understand what you're putting in your body. You understand how much fat, how much carbs, how much protein, and people don't know, and I didn't know until I started tracking my calories and my food, that a tablespoon of olive oil is 120 calories, and if you're dumping that on salad, man, you've just blown out your calorie intake for the day. You don't know that a slab of butter to put on your toast is blowing out your calories for the day.
You know what people don't also know, Matthew? They don't know that 4 grams of carbs translates to 1 tablespoon of sugar. And think about how many carbs Americans are eating. It's crazy. That's a lot of sugar. It's a pre-diabetic issue in this country. Yeah.
100%, man. And so, look, just go back to and stop my. I get passionate about this, but
no, I love it. Yeah.
But yeah, know what's going on with your health. Basic healthcare shouldn't cost anything because it's old tech, and we have to be proactive and start educating about what we eat, how we metabolize it, and what we can do in our lives to make sure that we live the best, most healthy lifestyle as possible.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a very personal story, obviously. It's probably difficult to share in general. I mean, it's a tough situation. If you were in America, would that have gotten the same outcome, or would it be different here? I'm just curious that it was in China, if it was different.
I would assume that the procedure would have costed 10 times the price, that he would be alive, but I would be in massive debt, and I would be not in the position that I am right now. And I would just be always slaving away at either in bankruptcy or in debt or...
So they probably would have done the procedure, but they would have put it on your credit, essentially. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's a good thing, I think, right? If you were in America, obviously you couldn't fly here. There was no ability. Once he was there, he was ready to pass, and it had to be done there. That's a shame, man. I really feel for you. All right. So Let's move on. Let's go back in life. I want to go all the way back when you were born. I want to talk about your early life growing up, your early years, your childhood. What was the socioeconomic conditions of your childhood? Can you tell us about what your parents did for a living and all that kind of stuff?
So my dad, he was working in steel factories, forging and so on and so forth. He high school degree, 3 kids by the time he was 24. He just wanted to have a family, very important to him. And my mother was 3 kids at 20, 22 or 20, 23 years old. And we struggled. We struggled. We were on food stamps. We did, we had the free lunches in school. We had the boxes of shoes to get some new shoes, and that he would shift through in the school. My mom was on a strict budget. I remember the boxes of food coming to the house from with government cheese and powdered milk and so on and so forth. So it's like, we struggled for the first 10 years while my dad, tried to raise the family and so on and so forth. Our community was great, though. We had a great family. My great aunt lived behind us until she passed, and I think it was either 85 or 86. And my uncle lived behind me. He was a father figure to me as well. We had great neighborhood in Slavic Village in Cleveland, Ohio, so we knew all of our neighbors. So it was a great support community structure. But yeah, I mean, we were all struggling. And my father went back to university when he was about 24, 25, finally graduating with his master's degree in with an MBA when he was around 30 or 31. And honestly, life started getting better after that. My grandfather has a family company, which is in the steel business. And after my dad went to university and got his master's, he started working for his dad. And life got better. But I can't stress to you how much that made an impact on me of just understanding the amount of the kind of work, the kind of pay, and what it does to a family when you're just really skimping. But with that said, kids, if you have a happy environment, kids don't know any different. That's what they know, right? So as a kid, for me growing up, it's not like but I could tell you that there was money stress, there was fights in the house between my mom and my dad. There was definitely, and once you get older and you look back and you go, oh, like it's not. Free lunches and boxes of food showing up your house and food stamps is not the norm, so.
Right. I bring people on the show that I consider to be docents, as I told you, right? And docents, I redefine the term as people that inspire, influence, and guide others through their actions. Docents are relentless people, the ultimate competitors and high achievers on this planet. They are the most persistent and enduring people. I consider you to be a docent. So I'd like to understand who your docents were other than your parents growing up. Who did you look up to in your personal life, as well as the people you didn't personally know that you looked up to?
Man, that's a good question. Look, we were a very religious household growing up. My dad's a pastor as right now. He's moving down to Florida to lead churches down in southern Florida in the Caribbean. Right now he's in New England with I think 4 different congregations over in the Boston, Maine, Vermont area. But so a lot of people came from church. I don't know if you would classify them as a docent, like you said, but look, I had one guy take me under his wing, and he taught me all about firearms and how to use and fire and shoot and safety. And his name was Big George. He was a 6'6", 400-pound truck driver. He lived out in rural Ohio. And then you had me, this 10, 11-year-old biracial kid, just tagging along with him, with to gun shows and shooting firearms in the woods, at oil barrels. I mean, he was a friend to me, and he taught me so much. And then there was another guy whose name was Ralph, and he was also from the church, and he taught me how to sail. Man, he had a sailboat down in down on the lake, and he took me out every summer to the point where, I remember the first time I went out there, I didn't know anything about a boat to the point where, 4 or 5 years later, I was tying the knots, and he, tying the knots, sailing the boat by myself, whatever. And I remember this one time he said, I went down there for the weekend to, learn to sail. He said, take the boat yourself. So there's this, 12-year-old kid with a 26-foot sailboat out there on the lake by himself, docking it, undocking it all by myself. And I was like, only because he trusted me and he saw something in me, and he said, go for it. He taught me, So those people throughout my life, are the people who saw something in me for some reason and, put the time and effort into, educate me in one way or the other. Those are the people I've looked up to. I mean, it went through my career when it came to, cooking. there's the chefs that came up and just said, hey, this dishwasher, let's give that guy a chance, and let's teach him how to cook. And then that allowed me to be a kitchen manager and actually make a decent wage, and be a so-called chef, and then it was just, people like in Shanghai, there's people, different instances where they just saw something in me, and that allowed me to, advance my career in ways that I couldn't have ever imagined. And so those are the people I've looked up to my whole life, is the people that saw something in me, took a chance because, of one reason or the other. And then through hard work and determination and the feeling that I don't want to disappoint them, I worked hard and got it done.
Let me ask you a question. What is your superpower? What is the one thing that is you consider to be your superpower?
Meeting and talking to people, man. Like I don't look good on paper. I don't look good. Like if I was writing an email, you're not gonna be like, oh, this is the dude that just when I sit down and talk to somebody, and I hate
you don't
that.
have the pedigree, right? You're not a Harvard grad, that kind of crap.
Yeah, you're not gonna. I'm not gonna show them the resume or the hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter or some kind of big, whatever yacht or whatever. It's just like, just sit down and talk to me. You're gonna see that I'm a normal dude. You see that I give a shit about the things that I do. You see that I'm gonna work hard for the things I do. I'm not gonna bullshit you. Once you get down in front of somebody, I think that's my superpower, is just to keep it real.
So on the flip side of that, you're Superman. What's your kryptonite?
My kryptonite is trying to do everything by paper, man. You don't get me in front of somebody or start talking to somebody, they're gonna just blow me off. And I've always been the underdog, man. Look, I got a scholarship to study Chinese, full scholarship to study Chinese, so I'm fluent in Chinese. And I was not picked for the scholarship. I did everything. I put myself on paper. I wrote my essays. I got my endorsements and so on and so forth. I had to get straight A's to get this, and so I checked all the boxes, and they just said, nah, you're not the guy. And who was the guy? What happened is I got that scholarship is because somebody dropped out, and I was the next one in line. And so, but when I got there, I was the only one that stayed in China. I was the only one that got fluent in Chinese out of the whole program. I was the only one that excelled in my career there. So and I got out of that program with straight A's, the only one to have the straight A's in the program as well. So it's just like, give me the chance, I will work at it and get it done, but I just don't translate well on paper, and that is my kryptonite. Is like, most people just look at the sheet of paper instead of looking at the person.
Brother, I got to tell you right now, that's me too. Like, I didn't go to any of these Harvard schools or Ivy League. I have no pedigree whatsoever. I come from a blue collar town, and I like putting myself out there because there's millions and millions of people like me, like you, that are just average people that were, I don't know, we're peasants, right? Growing up, when you think about it, right? And so, I like to do this show because most of these people, I think it was said before the show, people don't realize 85% of millionaires are self-made, right? That right today, 85%. Most people think, oh, they've inherited it, there was some kind of privilege, and not really. In fact, it's usually the people that end up not doing so well, or they grew up with money because they felt privileged growing up, and then they go to society and you realize it's a fight. And the people that win in those fights are the people that have nothing, that came from nothing. They're willing to fight, I got to ask you a question though, right? I love the fact that you're a young person that's running for Congress, because it's filled with a bunch of people that should be on Medicaid and stuff, right? So I like that you have a worldview that really is representative of the people that are actually earning and paying taxes, right? So I love that. But I got to ask you, why the hell do you want to be in Congress? Because on the other side of it, as much as I would like to go and make a change, you're putting yourself out there. You're going to get the criticism. You got to get the heat. You're going to deal with all the crap. You got to deal with it. I mean, what made you say, I got to do this? Like, there had to be something that was like this one pivotal moment. What is that?
Man, there was a lot of pivotal moments, man, and I'm just gonna get on my soapbox again and ramble through it, man. I'm sorry, man, but look, man, we have, like you said, there's a lot of old people in Congress. Look, we're trying to make regulation and legislation when it comes to emerging technology. We're talking about Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies or blockchain tech, and we are just seeing, like, even with the infrastructure bill, that they're just making frameworks for these regulations. I'm not even calling them frameworks, just sweeping regulations that don't make any sense to this. And so, like, we need people to understand this new world that's coming up, to get in there and actually start, allowing to or helping make frameworks to allow these businesses to develop. And I want to use frameworks, not regulations, because regulations means I'm regulating something and I'm trying to stop something. No, let's make a framework so people can develop and operate. Let's inspire and help the entrepreneur, the innovator, the creators to go out and build, right? And that's what we want. This is what the beautiful thing about the country is. And so that's one reason. There's the other reasons are, like, I've lived abroad. I was 15 years in Asia, so 13 years from 2004 to 2017 in China. I did my master's in Taiwan, and worked in Hong Kong and Singapore. I've been to almost every country in Asia, from Korea to Japan to Thailand to Vietnam to Cambodia. So I've done my travels around there, and it is very apparent that we need to get our manufacturing back. We need to get our supply chain back, especially you see it right now. Ford's cutting the production of their cars. We can't get the computer chips because they're made in Taiwan or Japan. We see that the Chinese middle class, and I saw it. I lived it. From 2004 to now, the middle class exploded. They're owning houses and cars and sending their kids to college and have savings and having good jobs. And this is because those manufacturing jobs, those living wage jobs, have gone away from America. So let's get those back. I've seen it the benefits of real good paying, a living wage worker, blue collar jobs, and which is not a negative, bringing them back to the U.S. And again, what we need to do is also promote the trades and respect them, let them make the trades sexy again, man. Like that is so important to me. Look, I'm a high school dropout. I just told you that I'm fluent in Chinese. I went to university, got my bachelor's degree. I got a full scholarship for my MBA. I got a scholarship to study Chinese. I'm not a slouch. I'm not a hard worker, but I'm also a high school dropout. You want to know why I wanted to drop out? Because I wanted to be a chef. I just wanted to go and work and just try to learn a skill and a trade. And everybody told me I will never amount to anything because I didn't graduate. I didn't go to school. I'm not going to college. And what a crappy thing to do to somebody, to say that if you're not going to amount to anything, if you just work. Bullshit. Go out and do it. Go out and be an electrician, a carpenter, be a small business entrepreneur, be a hairdresser. I don't care what you do. Open a gym. Show them dignity and respect because they're part of your community. They're working hard as well, and they have a skill that they could teach you. And of course, they can come help, and they are part of this whole bigger system. I want to make sure I'm going to Congress to make sure that we respect the trades, respect the dignity of work and hard work and entrepreneurship here in the U.S. and put the trades back into high school, financial education. Make sure that people can understand how to manage their money, so they don't either not go into debt or leverage their capital and so on and so forth, so they can help build wealth throughout time. And you know what, you start out with this question is, why do I want to go to Congress? And the fact is somebody has to do it, man. Somebody has to do it. And I just want to make sure that I get in front of enough people to say that and convince people to say, hey, this dude's real. He's not bullshitting. He actually wants to do the work. He actually is a hard worker, and he can do the work. And let's actually do things in Washington that helps the average person, us, man, our families, the families that we came from. And so once we start picking the people to go to Washington that will represent that and can get that done, then I think we will actually see change. But right now, what we're doing is picking people on face value alone, on their resume, who they know, how much money they could raise in their campaign.
Yep.
And honestly, and we keep getting the same results in Washington. It keeps whittling away our wealth as middle class people, as workers, and we're not getting any results. So I'm going because we really do need change, man.
You mentioned financial literacy, and the public education system, in my opinion, does not teach basic fundamental financial literacy.
I don't know. They teach
really
basic fundamental anything, man.
Right. It's like most Americans, they seem to blame the other party for the problems or the woes. They say, oh, it's because of Trump. Oh, it's because of Obama. Oh, it's because of Bush. Oh, it's because of Clinton. It's like they always blame the president. Like the president really has anything to do with it. It really is the Federal Reserve. And that's what people don't realize. It's interest rates, right? The old saying on Wall Street is don't fight the Fed. You never hear people say, don't fight the president. not with the people who have the real money, like what I'm talking about, Wall Street. I don't think people understand that interest rates is what drives most of the economic conditions in this country and the policies of the Fed. Obviously, they're passing stimulus packages and stuff at the Congress level. Yeah, okay. Okay, we can get into that. But what are your views on this? Like, how would you change it? How would you change, or would you propose to? Not that you can actually do it. You have to lobby it, right? As you're going to find out, it's very difficult to make changes that you want, right? You got to get people to support it within Congress. What do you want to do for financial literacy?
The first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that the middle class and the average person has the same tools as rich people. And what does that mean? It means like things like Robinhood. Look, like it or hate it, Robinhood gave the retail person, the mom and pop, the ability to buy stocks, right? And that's an amazing thing. Before, you had to call your bank, pay $35 for them to do it. You had to look at the newspaper. You couldn't invest yourself because you weren't an accredited investor with, a certain level of wealth or income. And so like you just didn't have that ability to, invest into the things that the rich people are investing in, to be honest with you, and using your money that way. But these different, retail tools and products, financial products, gave the average person the ability to, buy and hold one share of Tesla, a half a share of Tesla, put $25 a month or a week into, index fund or, what have you. And so I just want to make sure that first that we have the tools available to everyone that have the same tools for rich people. And let me just expand on that a little bit more. Over here in the place I just told you I grew up in, it's called Slavic Village. The average home or the median home price in Slavic Village is $39,000. $39,000. Okay. There are people that that are paying a mortgage on that $39,000. They came up with maybe a couple grand to put down. They are paying off their mortgage every month, like everybody else. Who knows if it's $100 or $200 or $300 for a $39,000 house? But they are building that equity. But because it's a lower income neighborhood, because it's a lower priced house, they don't have the ability to leverage that equity like somebody else with a $500,000 or $1 million house. That is absolutely not fair. What could that equity that they're putting into be used for? It could be used for home repair to increase their value. It could be used for education. It could be used for a startup to be an entrepreneur. It could be used for so many different things. But it's like, first, let's make sure that the products are there for everybody to take advantage of the money that they have and the wealth that they're building and use it and deploy it in a way that can benefit them, just like the millionaire does.
Please don't do that.
Please don't do that. No, but I do want to make sure that these products are available for the average person.
One thing I never understood is the accredited investor rule, right? It's been around since I think 1933 and the act that they passed a long time ago, which is if you don't have $1 million net worth or make between, I think, $200,000 or $300,000 a year, depending on if you're single or married, you can't participate in what we now call the pre-IPO market, which they used to just be called private companies, right? You're not allowed to invest. All of a sudden you have $1 million, you scratch off a lottery ticket. All of a sudden they say, well, you're smart enough to invest. It's like, they just look at your name. They don't give you a test. It's not like, please take this test to see how smart you are financially. Nope. Oh, you have money. You must automatically be smart. I never understood this rule. Like, you're protecting people from themselves. Who are you to say whether or not they have the financial acumen to make these investments? What do you think about that accredited investor rule?
Again, I think it's what I just said is expanding these products over to the average person. How do we assess that somebody isn't going to lose all of their money because they're investing in YOLO on GameStop or Dogecoin or whatever? I don't want to be the person that says that they can't, because I'm the person that says, like, it's your money. Again, we're so hypocritical in this country. You can, like you just said, scratch a lotto ticket. You can do that all day long. You can go down to Jack's Casino down here in
spend all your
Cleveland
money, right,
and spend all your money. You can drink it away. You can, but for some reason, when it comes to trying to build wealth with these financial products, we have all these barriers for people.
I agree. So let's talk about you mentioned fundraising, right? Let's talk about your fundraising efforts right now. So you're obviously running for Congress. How much have you raised so far in your campaign? How much crypto in particular have you raised? It's interesting on your website. You're taking crypto. I think it's great, by the way. But I'm just curious, are people actually spending their Bitcoin or Litecoin or anything like that? Are you getting donations? If so, roughly about how much? Where are you at in the polls right now? And also, how much has your competitor raised so far during this campaign?
Well, so let me see. We raised probably about 80 grand. It's just grassroots. I make 3 hours of phone calls every day, random people,
Sure,
telling about myself and telling about the campaign. In crypto, we've probably raised about $1,000. That's in crypto. But when it comes to the crypto space, they've been pretty supportive. So people I've known in the space, they've probably sent maybe $15,000. People who've worked in the space and donate to the campaign. The competitors, they have raised a crap ton. Of course, we have the incumbent who's an incumbent, so he could of course raise, and he's probably raised $1 million so far. There's the Trump-backed candidate who's probably raised $1 million so far. I'm running as a Democrat. I'm the only Democrat in the race. So I'm just trying to David and Goliath sort of thing. How much do we need? We need $2 million. Where is that money going to come from? Well, it's going to come from hard work. It's going to come from the people in the crypto space that see that. Look, I also want to say that we always support these people in the crypto space because they put hashtag Bitcoin in their bio, in their Twitter bio. But look, we have to look at people. I've held my keys for years. All right, my
That's right.
Bitcoin
You're
keys.
cold storage, right? You hold your own. Yeah, I read that.
100%, 100%. I've been educating in this space for 5 years with different
Yep.
podcasts from Crypto 101. I have my daily news show right now called the Decrypt Daily. I've done other shows and produced other shows in between those two shows for other people in the crypto space. And so, I just think that one, we have to, if we want to further this industry, we have to get people that actually, commit to this industry and this emerging technology. But regardless, going back to fundraising is, yeah, we're still, we are not the top fundraisers 100%, but that does not mean that we're not going to put the work in. That doesn't mean that we don't have the message to get out there, and it doesn't mean that and this goes back to our conversation before about what do we look like on paper.
So what do you? How are you faring in the polls though? In the process so far, how does it look?
Well, we're the election is not until 2022. Again,
Yeah.
I'm the only Democrat in the race, so looking pretty good for me until we get to the general, and then there's three people slugging it out on the Republican side. So let's just see.
What has been the one big surprise that you have noticed as a candidate running for Congress? I can imagine there's a bunch of them, but what is the one thing that you're like, I just can't believe that?
Free thought is very looked down upon. I don't want to go on record to say this, but I'm going to go on record to say this: is that there are talking points that you need to stick with. Like
Within the party, you're saying?
Exactly. Exactly. I've been called a Republican on numerous occasions because I think that we should lower capital gains tax on the average person, on the average income, because I want to encourage the like I just said, the middle class people to start investing into the stock market. But if you're only investing, say, $1,000 into the stock market because that's all you have, that's all you can muster, and you're looking at doubling your money, but you're going to tax that $1,000 and doubling your money, because if you say the S&P 500, what's the growth rate of that? Anywhere from a 10 to 12% annually.
Yep.
So look, you have that $1,000 in there, and you want to keep growing it. By the time you have $1,000 in profits, it's 8 years later, and then you're going to tax 20%, 23% on top of that for long-term cap gains. It's like let's encourage the average person to invest into our economy.
Yeah.
Let them get ahead. And so people call it.
That should be the tagline. Let them get ahead.
Let them, please. And let's teach finances in schools. But I've been called a Republican for even mentioning that. And I don't like fighting the traditional talking points without really thinking about real solutions for real people. And so that's one thing that surprised me is, like, if you say lower taxes, you're a Republican. But I'm wait. I'm lowering taxes on the middle class, the working class. This is what the Democrats should be are supposedly standing for. So that's what really surprised me.
All right, let's talk about Bitcoin. I think I heard your first, what you said earlier, which is your aha moment with your son. So we don't have to ask you that question. It's a typical question I ask. But when did you first learn about Bitcoin? You must have known about it prior to that. So what was your first, when were you first introduced to it, I guess?
My first introduction to Bitcoin was in 2013 by a podcast called Stuff You Should Know. And they're just talking about stuff you should know. What is Bitcoin? And it was that my son was born many years before that. So it was like 2013 was like, oh, this is how that works. I can apply it to this. And that's how it could have been.
Got it. You put the dots
exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't get back into Bitcoin until like 2016. I tell the story quite a bit. It was my bartender. I was the GM of a venue at one time, and the bar manager, man, he was out messing around somewhere. I could see him walking out the back somewhere, and with a big ass grin on his face. I was like, bro, it's like a Friday night. Get behind the bar. What are you doing, man? He's like, oh, I was sending money to this random dude in Guangzhou to buy Bitcoin. And he sent me back Bitcoin to my wallet, because in China, that's how you did it. You sent them, sent them like a PayPal, let's call it, but it's WeChat, but PayPal them, some money, and then they sent you Bitcoin back. And so I'm like, bro, stop messing around. But then like the days after that, I was like, I just started talking to him, and he started telling me about Bitcoin. He started talking about the price and whatever, and I started going down the rabbit hole. And then in the summer of 2017 is when I started my podcast called Crypto 101, which was educating people how to get into Bitcoin. Because from January or the end of 2016 to that time when I stopped their podcast, you had to go through like the whole motions yourself. It's like, what does HODL mean? What does RECT mean? What is a maker taker fee? What is, slippage? What is, you just try to figure out how to buy and sell and set up your wallet. And is Coinbase safe? They're asking for a lot of information, over here. Like, do I really give them all this information? And
who are these guys?
Who are these guys asking for like pictures of my ID plus a picture of me holding my ID? Like, are you kidding me? I'm not going to give you that. But, but if you want to be involved with this, you do have to do the KYC and AML and just have that on ramp as an American.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to make a show that went down the rabbit hole pretty deep and gave people confidence to get into it. And that show got up to about 100,000 listeners per episode. And, it was successful. And I onboarded, thousands of people into cryptocurrency because of that.
What percentage of your net worth is in crypto, and in particular for Bitcoin? Like, what would you have to add it up? What percentage would you say it is?
Embarrassingly a lot.
That's good, man.
Embarrassingly a lot. Look, and this is another thing I want everybody to really look at is anybody who runs for Congress or is in Congress has to do an ethics disclosure report. And so all of everything that they have is on there. So again, if you are looking at Congress people or people running for Congress, and you do put yourself out there a little bit. And this is honestly, it was probably the scariest point about running for Congress is to do this ethics disclosure because you are literally telling everybody everything you hodl.
It's crazy.
And it is, man. And I can see why people don't want to do this. But again, I'm doing it and we're doing it. But if you do see people that are saying that we are supporting Bitcoin, we hodl Bitcoin, or we are an advocate for the crypto space, look at their disclosure and actually see if they do hodl and what they do hodl. Like you would be surprised how many people just bought grayscale Bitcoin trusts. They don't hold Bitcoin, but they just hold Bitcoin trust, but they still say I'm a proponent of Bitcoin. Well, you don't hold your keys. Are you really? And I mean, fine, you're talking about financial products, but let's define this. Who are these people, and when did they buy? When did they hodl? When did they get into it? Or is it just a hashtag to rally up the crypto community to try to get some Bitcoins?
Well, that's why I asked the percentage, and I asked most people on the show the percentage, Matthew, because I'm curious, like how much conviction have they had? And a lot of times it may have been a smaller percentage because you got in 2016, but it's growing because the asset value is going up.
No, man, it's just embarrassing, and that's why I'm not going to tell you a percentage. But you can look and just see like, man, you're really over leveraged, aren't you?
I got to go Google this shit. Is that what you're telling me? All right. But you own altcoins, as we call it in the Bitcoin world, shitcoins. So tell me why. Why do you still believe? Because you seem like you're very educated about the space. What makes you still? Do you think that it might fail Bitcoin? Like, what's the reason to own the others? And I do know that they outperform Bitcoin during bull runs, but over a 4 or 5 year period, they never have. So what is your views on the altcoin market?
Look, I think that Bitcoin, my analogy for Bitcoin is Bitcoin is like Superman. And I love that we're having this whole discussion about regulations of Bitcoin. And again, another soapbox I'm going to get on. And did you watch Man of Steel? You remember Man of Steel? I think it was Henry Cavill, and he's walking through the police station, and he has handcuffs on, right? And Lois Lane's asking him, he's like, "Why'd you allow them to handcuff you?" And he's like, "It makes them feel comfortable," right? And the thing is, we all know that he could break those handcuffs, and fly through the ceiling, and fly away. Nobody can stop Superman. And that's how I feel with Bitcoin and regulations. It's like we keep saying like, "Oh no, they're going to regulate Bitcoin." It's like, who cares? Who cares? Fine. Slap the regulations on the bank, slap it on Coinbase, slap this. But if you hold your private keys, you have always an ability to break the handcuffs and fly away. There's this other part in Superman where it says where Lois Lane was sitting across from Superman and asked, "What does the S on your chest mean?" And he's like, "It's not an S. In my home world, it's a symbol for hope." So if Bitcoin is not Superman, you gotta tell me what is it? And so I look at Bitcoin as one aspect. If things go south when it comes to inflation, when it comes to the stability of our economy or whatever, Bitcoin is in my opinion, a great solution because we can break those handcuffs. We can go P2P. We can have some semblance of, a society that can do commerce with each other. But also I'm a blockchain technology. I love blockchain tech. I think voting on the blockchain is one of those things that we need to implement now. People say that it's a hard thing to do. It's impossible. But no, man, it isn't. It's the perfect use case for voting. We have the Republicans on one side saying that the election was stolen. It was rigged. Biden wasn't, it was whatever. We also have, lack of transparency. People saying like, how are these votes getting counted? Who's counting them? Where did my vote go? Was my vote thrown away? Was my ballot thrown away? All that stops with blockchain technology. And you can use zero proof ZK snarks or zero knowledge proofs to make it anonymous. You can still have 100% confidence that these votes are getting counted. You can track your vote to see how it's being counted, and you can just go backwards and always audit whenever anybody. You can have an open source. You can have any dude that wants to download the blockchain, audit the election results, and we can have total. And they will, and they'll have total confidence. Why are we having this roll out right now? Because we don't want to.
All right, Matthew, what are your thoughts on the NFT craze that's happening right before our eyes right now?
I don't know what to think. I think that the NFTs are amazing. I think NFTs in general are amazing because you can tokenize and have a digital, a unique representation of something. I think that it's going to revolutionize collectors and the way to collect when it comes to sports cards or, even art. We saw Banksy is now getting turned over to NFTs. What do I think about the art being produced right now and the whole, value of that and the craze? I have no clue what to think. I just want to see it play out. So I have honestly no opinion.
All right, let me ask you this one. SEC's position on Bitcoin versus what they're saying, Bitcoin and Ethereum versus what they're saying about all the other altcoins. Gensler came out and said that he considers Bitcoin and Ethereum essentially to be property, and the others, they should be considered securities. Obviously, that's going to be an issue for them because he's probably going to be going after them at some point. He's kind of signaling to the market what they're likely to do. What do you think about that?
I think that this is why we need to get people into Congress that understand it, so we can help, start lobbying and pushing the needle in certain ways and making actually regulations from a congressional level to make sure that we're in pushing forth innovation, emerging tech, and entrepreneurs and helping them create and build. I think that we just need to get more people into Congress that get it.
And again, I'm going to ask your views on the recent bill that was passed that by Congress that was heavily opposed rather by the Bitcoin community, as you probably are well aware, that it really proposes a lot of strict oversight and surveillance, I guess, on Bitcoin at the exchange level for the on-ramps and the off-ramps. What is your view on that proposal that the Congress folks were actually a lot of people in your party as well, kind of proposing to do these things, and then obviously the Bitcoin community came back. They lobbied in a little bit of a way, and we're saying that we would like to change it this way, that way, and they say no, we're done. We're just passing this. Like, what do you feel about that?
Well, I think it just shows you how the legislative process is broken. First of all, it was thrown in there haphazardly. Nobody understands how Bitcoin works or binding works, and how do we define a broker and what brokerage means. I mean, so that was just a haphazard from everybody who voted yes on that. The other thing is, and I think it's just another way to bamboozle the American people that they're going to pay for something. If you don't know how you're going to take the money, you don't say that you're going to earmark $28 billion of additional tax revenue to pay for something, but you actually don't understand the thing that you're trying to tax. And then if you don't know how to tax it and you actually can't get those funds, or these miners move out of the country and you can't get, these tax the miners because they already left because you destroyed the mining industry in the United States, don't think they're going to get $28 billion from that to support this bill that you're passing. I just think it was haphazard. I think it was uneducated. And I think that it was just bamboozling the middle class, the average person, again, of saying that we're going to pay for this and they actually don't know how.
I hope you get in, because we need people that are thinking like this. And I also want to get you in so that I can bring you back on the show. I'm like, what the hell are these guys saying behind closed doors? What is happening? Do they even know what they're talking about? Like when you're in private meetings, like I think they're just like, what am I supposed to vote on? Tell me what to do. I don't know. They don't, half of it, they don't even, I don't think they read it. They don't understand, But anyway, let's move on. The SEC has not ruled on the Bitcoin ETF. Canada has, as you can see, right? What are your thoughts on the Bitcoin ETF? I'm imagining you think there should be ETFs for this stuff, but why is it not happening? Like, what's going on here?
I don't know, but again, they're punting the ball. They keep punting the ball. The Van Eck ETF was just now punted all the way to November 17th, I think it is, or 14th, somewhere around there. Look, they've been applying for Bitcoin ETFs for years already. The fact that we don't have clear guidance and frameworks is, again, this is just, this is from the problems with government and Congress in general, So it's like, look, we still don't understand how to regulate or look at the First Amendment and freedom of speech when it comes to social media networks, And we've already seen, we don't even know what it means to, what does it mean for your data? What ownership do you have over your personal data that you generate for these companies? Even though we had Cambridge Analytica, So it's like, we have not even been able to answer questions that we've been asking for a decade, yet we're trying to do this with emerging technology. I just think it's the failure of Congress. And I think that every regulatory branch right now just hands off and punts the ball down the field and gives it off to some other branch because they don't want the responsibility to actually make decisions and have conversations.
Matthew, what do you think of the companies like BlockFi and others that have these lending products? We saw what happened just the other day with Coinbase and the SEC, which blows my mind. They're sitting here having discussions behind closed doors about what do you want us to do to be compliant, and then they just back out and say, no, we're just going after these guys, or rhetoric that's very strong. It seems the SEC is going to come after folks on this topic. What are your views on that in terms of the lending products?
My views on that is I think we should be asking the question, what are my views, or what are we thinking about your bank account, your savings account only paying you 0.03% interest, and opposed to something that's actual, that actually can keep up with inflation, even though they're taking your money and lending it out to over and over and over and over again. So I think that's the question that we should be asking. And now finally somebody comes out to pay interest on some money that they are holding and putting to work for you, and we're going, well, this doesn't seem right. No, that actually seems like the way this is supposed to work. So that's my the way I'm approaching this.
All right, last question. What is your 10-year price prediction for Bitcoin?
I don't make price predictions. I have never have, and I never will. All I can say is that Plan B's stock to flow looks like it's holding pretty well. I would just look at what he says and see if it keeps matching up. If it keeps matching up, there's no reason to try to reinvent the wheel.
Thank you for coming on the show. I truly appreciate your time today. I wish you the best of luck on your campaign. Matthew Diemer, running for Congress in Ohio. Matthew, thank you again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it.